Hey guys, Dusty here. It's been a few months, but I finally was able to rack up enough miles on my Asics Metaspeed Edge to do my full review. And make sure you stick around to the end of the video because I'll actually be giving away my pair. And they still have at least a couple hundred miles of life left. And don't worry, for those of you that aren't the right size for this shoe, I'll be doing another shoe giveaway when my channel hits 5,000 subs, probably in a couple of months. So I should start this review off by saying that Asics designed the Metaspeed Edge for cadence runners. And to quickly explain, we can use myself as an example, as I'm a cadence runner. So my cadence during easy runs or recovery runs, depending on what shoe I'm wearing at least, can sometimes be as low as 170 steps per minute. And then if you look at my cadence on race day, it's always in the 190s. So that's a very big range. And for me to run faster, not only do I slightly increase my stride length, but I always have to increase my cadence. And that's the type of runner that this shoe is for. Now we'll get right into the stats on this shoe. The Asics Metaspeed Edge has a heel to toe drop of 8 millimeters. And I can't seem to confirm the exact stack height on this shoe, but I think it's somewhere around 33 millimeters in the rear and 25 in the forefoot. And because this shoe doesn't have a crazy high stack height like a lot of the other super shoes out there, it makes this shoe, the Metaspeed Edge, much more stable. So if you're running a race and it has a lot of tight corners, this shoe is going to be a huge advantage over some of the other super shoes out there. Now my men's size 8.5 weighs in at an unbelievably light 6.2 ounces or 175 grams. And then if we look at the upper, it does its job just fine. The upper itself, the material, it has no stretch to it whatsoever. And it's super light, obviously, breathes just fine, has decent lockdown. There is a little bit of padding inside the heel collar, just enough that I didn't have any heel slipping issues or any sort of hot spots or anything like that. As far as the heel itself, it's pretty floppy. There is a little bit of structure, but not much. Pretty basic cotton laces, and then a very thin tongue as well. And for those of you wondering, the insole is not removable. Now we move along to what makes all of these super shoes so special, the midsole. And the midsole on the Edge uses Asics Flight Foam Blast Turbo midsole. And this is one of my favorite midsoles out on the market. Very responsive, has a decent amount of bounce to it. So decent cushion in the shoe. There's definitely more cushion in the rear than the forefoot because it does have that 8 mil drop. There is a lot less midsole in the forefoot of the shoe. And then of course sandwiched inside the midsole is a carbon fiber plate, making the shoe ultra stiff. And then if we look on the bottom of the shoe, there's a decent amount of rubber covering the bottom. And this rubber is awesome. It's very durable. I have very little wear so far through 55 miles. And it's also very grippy, which is a huge plus. So if you're running on wet roads, you don't have to worry about sliding around. I do have a couple of negatives about the outsole on this shoe, and it all comes down to the exposed midsole. So first of all, if you look at the heel on the shoe, I almost wish Asics would have placed a little bit of rubber back here. And as someone who slightly heel strikes myself, I'm seeing quite excessive wear in the heel, although I'm pretty sure it's just cosmetic and not actually affecting the function of the shoe. So just be mindful of that. If you have a pair yourself and you're a heel striker, you're probably going to see pretty excessive wear even just after a couple of runs, but just know that your shoe's not wrecked and it's more than likely just cosmetic. Now my second issue with the exposed midsole is this has happened a couple of times actually, and I've stepped on sharp rocks and they've been stuck so deep inside the midsole that I haven't been able to actually get them out until I got home from my run and was able to take the shoe off and actually be able to pull them out with something. And I don't think this rock thing is going to be a common issue amongst other runners, especially if you're sticking mostly to pavement, which is where the shoe was intended to run on. Alright, so specs out of the way, let's get into the fit of the shoe. Now the fit of this shoe is why at the end of this video I'm going to be giving away these shoes. So first of all, when you get the right size, the shoe fits really, really nice. Like I mentioned earlier, I had no issues with my heel slipping in and out. Pretty good lockdown in the midfoot, adequate width in the forefoot as well. The only thing I wish I had known before I bought a pair of these is just how crazy short they fit. So I'm almost always a men's size 8.5, and that's what I went with in the Metaspeed Edge, and they are way too short for me. They're actually so short that I've decided that there's no way I could possibly do a race in them. So instead of continuing on training, and anytime I run over 45 minutes, my toes just start to ache and I get blisters, I decided I might as well give them away to one of you who fit them. So I think this is a pretty common complaint out there if you look at some other reviews on the shoe. In my experience, at least, this is the shortest fitting 8.5 that I've ever worn in my life. Now let's get into what I actually think about the shoe. So the Metaspeed Edge, if it wasn't for it being unbelievably too short for myself, I would probably rank this shoe right up at the top as one of my favorite carbon plated shoes. And come race day, for anything in between a 5K and a half marathon, I think it would be a toss-up between the Asics Metaspeed Edge and the Nike Vaporfly. And I think those distances is where this shoe's really going to shine. For myself at least, I think for a full marathon, I would probably, well not probably, I know I would choose the Nike Vaporfly over the Edge, just because it has that little bit more cushion for those longer miles. I did a little bit of everything in this shoe. I did some hill repeats, which felt amazing in this shoe, by the way. I did some work on the track, on the road, even on some hard packed trails, which is where I got the rocks stuck in the bottom. And this is absolutely a shoe that you're not going to want to run easy in. The faster you go in the shoe, the smoother and better that it feels. Has a decent amount of bounce to it, but it's still nowhere near the level of bounce as something like the Nike Vaporfly. But the shoe is very, very responsive, very snappy, and really nice to run in, at least at faster paces. So overall, it's a huge bummer for me that this shoe is way too small, that I'm not going to be able to use it going forward. And at the time when I got it and I knew it was too small, I decided to go ahead and use it anyways, because it would have probably taken months to return it and get a new one. But ultimately, if you're a cadence runner, I think this is probably one of the fastest shoes you can own for the distances between 5K and half marathon. Now, as far as price goes, it retails for $325 Canadian or $250 US. And yes, just like almost every other super shoe out there, that price is absolutely crazy. But when you're comparing it to the king of super shoes, the Nike Vaporfly, the Nike Alpha Fly, it definitely holds its own, so maybe that price is justified. So like I mentioned earlier, I have about 55 miles or 90K on these shoes. And my pair is a size 8.5, but they fit very small. So if you're usually a men's size 8 and you want to try a pair of these, comment down below. And the first person to do so, as long as you live in US or Canada, I'll send them to you. So well done, Asics. You made a shoe, at least in my opinion, that can compete with the Nike Vaporfly, at least for shorter distances. And it's funny, I was actually going to say that it's weird that a lot of the other shoe reviewers out there on YouTube haven't been reviewing the shoe. But I see that Seth Demore just posted his review this morning. I haven't looked at it yet, but I'm very curious to see what his thoughts are on it. And later this week, I'll be making a video doing a direct comparison between the Metaspeed Edge and the Metaspeed Sky. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.